Ryan Jarrell here for All Access MMA, and you know who my next guest is, Julian Erosa, and you can catch him fight February the 20th at UFC Vegas 19 when he meets Nate Landwehr. Julian, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, it's my pleasure, and we're excited to see you climb back in the octagon. It's been a little while since you fought last. You got to go back to your big win over Sean Woodson in June of last year. What has life been like for you since?
Yeah, obviously that was probably, that was my best performance in the UFC. Obviously, I don't think it was the best performance I've had, in fighting, but, people really only see what you do, on TV or on the big show. So in the big show, obviously, that was my best performance. And right after that fight, I got a lot of positive feedback from a lot of people, which was nice. And it was just nice for me to be able to perform like I do in the gym and translate it into the cage. And I wanted to get a quick turnaround, but I got cut in that fight over my eye, and it got infected as well. So they put me on a suspension for 45 days from the UFC, and which was fine. I was still training, wearing headgear, and just putting a little bit of liquid Band-Aid on it, and just kind of getting through the practices I could get through. And then after the suspension was over, I ended up catching coronavirus, and took me a couple months to bounce back from that. The initial symptoms were only for I would say about a week, but it took me probably about 6 to 8 weeks to really get my cardio back to where it was. So I know some people are asymptomatic, so they don't feel any of it, but for me it was pretty heavy on me, especially for my cardio. So I had to get through that, and then I got an ear infection as well. After that, I was on antibiotics, so just kind of one thing after another. And but now I'm 100% healthy. Got something lined up, so that's kind of what I've been doing. Obviously, my last fight was great, so it was nice to kind of just sit back and enjoy that. But I'm a fighter, and most fighters want to just kind of get a quick turnaround, especially if you're not dealing with any injuries, which I hadn't really been dealing with any injuries. It was just kind of random things that you wouldn't necessarily account for.
For sure. With the COVID virus, again, as you said, it affects everyone a little bit differently. Did it affect your lungs? Can you just elaborate on a little bit about how it affected your day-to-day life?
Yeah, so it was the first 5 days, me and my wife, we had it together. Luckily, we just had it together, so kind of went through it and were able to just quarantine together and just kind of get past it together. And the first 5 days, I was getting, I got up to 102 temperature, so I got a pretty high temperature. Just getting a little, I was just getting flu-like symptoms. I felt like I had the flu, but I obviously knew I had the COVID because all the symptoms were adding up. So I went and got tested positive, and then after it, I went for a run, and it wasn't my lungs. It was so weird because it didn't feel like my lungs were getting like there was any fluid in my lungs or anything like that. It just felt like my body couldn't, produce enough oxygen to my muscles. And so it just felt like everything was real lethargic, and my body just couldn't keep up and like it could. And so when I first got back to training, I was doing one practice a day, and it was just, even that was kind of taking it out of me. And I could just tell that whatever it was that was holding me back from the COVID was still there. And I was just slowly adding more practices in until I got back to where I felt 100%.
How long did the worst of that last? Are you talking a month or longer?
Yeah, so basically the worst symptoms, where I really felt it, I really felt sick, that I was laying in bed and couldn't really do anything, was probably about 5 or 6 days. And then me and my wife quarantined for 14 days altogether. And so, and even those days, even after that, I would say probably another 8 days after those symptoms were kind of gone and we were still quarantined, I was really lethargic still. Me and my wife were sleeping 10 hours a night and then also taking 3-hour naps. And our bodies just really needed rest. And then after we got done quarantining and I had a negative test, I went and trained, and it's still affecting me, another 5 weeks after that, in practices. So I was, trying to take it slow and come back. It's tough for us fighters. We have a schedule, and we train twice a day usually. So not being able to do that kind of make you go a little crazy. Especially we live in a little apartment, so being here for 14 days straight, not being able to work out and that kind of thing was a little frustrating. But sometimes you need those things to kind of hold you back and reset your body and your mind.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now obviously you're back to 100%. Is your wife is I assume she's back to herself as well?
Yeah, me and her basically went through the same thing, but she actually lost her taste and her smell. So that's something I didn't have to deal with, which was nice because being stuck here and being bored and kind of frustrated with that, at least I could enjoy the taste of good food. He didn't really get to taste anything they were eating, so it kind of sucked for her.
Yeah, definitely. You had, I guess, the better version of it, if you could say. I know both me and my fiance, we worked from home a lot during this pandemic. Did we caught up on a lot of, great Netflix shows and movies? Is there anything that you can suggest? Because I'm sure you guys dove into some series, right?
Well, we jumped into a couple of movies, and man, we watched some of like I could do the opposite of giving you a movie to watch because we had watched some really bad ones. Um, my wife decided to choose one that's called The Assistant, and it was like the worst movie I'd ever watched. They have that girl from Ozark, the younger blonde looking girl. She's like the main character in it. And it's called The Assistant, and it's like the most boring movie ever. And but anyway, I mean we kind of fell into all the regular stuff. Not during the pandemic, but once Hulu got all the Survivors on, me and my wife would just watch all the Survivors. We rewatched Jersey Shore during the first shutdown. Just anything and everything.
Gotcha. I'll give you a couple suggestions if you're looking to hear any.
All right. Oh yeah, go for it for sure. I'm always down for that.
So Sneaky Pete is a TV series that it seems to be overlooked. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but Bryan Cranston was into the first season. I think he's the executive producer and whatnot. Really, really great, underrated show that doesn't get a lot of attention. And then right now we were watching what is it called? Your Honor with Bryan Cranston. Have you heard of that?
No, I haven't.
Man, it's good. It's on Showtime, but both I highly recommend.
Okay, yeah. I've seen Sneaky Pete like advertisements for it, and I've watched I think a little bit of the just the trailer kind of for it, but haven't dived into that one yet.
All right. Well, maybe put that one on your bucket list when you have some downtime. You can check it out. Now, I gotta ask you, man. You've had really quite some hills and valleys with your career recently, and I love a comeback story, man. And what you've been through. I'm just gonna run through this timeline. In June of 2018, you had that huge Contender Series win over Jamal Emmers. Then in the UFC, you dropped those 3 fights, unfortunately. You had that 3-fight skid. You get caught. Then you win a first-round submission victory at Cage Sports 60, then go on to beat Sean Woodson. Can you put into words the emotions of what you've been through? Because you've really been through quite a lot to get back now in your third stint in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean that was kind of like my second chance already. I even before that, I was on the Ultimate Fighter, had been in the UFC, it was 1-1, and then got cut, and then was on. I think I was 7-2 before I got the shot against Jamal Emmers on the Contender Series. So it'd been. I've had a lot of fights, in between 2015 when I was on the Ultimate Fighter up to now, and so kind of being in and out and kind of being a guy who's been kind of in every aspect of the UFC. I've been in the UFC, was on Ultimate Fighter, was on Contenders. The only thing I really wasn't on was looking for a fight. But to be on all these shows and kind of do well. I was 3-1 in the Ultimate Fighter. Lost to a guy who in MMA math, I beat the guy who beat him to get in the house, which was Mehdi Baghdad. So and then they brought friggin' Artem back. They didn't bring Artem back. I probably would have fought for the finale. And so, that kind of screwed me a little bit. And then I went 1-on-1 in the UFC and they cut me, which kind of sucked. And then fought, 7 hour. I mean, I think I was 5-2 maybe. I think it was 7 fights I'd fought. And then I got a fight against Jamal Emmers and was a 3-1 or 2.5-1 underdog. Ended up knocking him out. And they were building. It seemed like they were building him up and they were giving him this favorite, and I thought that was weird because I was like a 90% finish rate at that point, and he was like 40 or something. And I had more fights, been in the UFC. My record was big and good at the time, and they were giving him such big respect, versus me. Like they were just like downplaying me and trying to upplay him. And then after I knock him out, I didn't get signed. It was just weird, you know. It was like how much better could you ask for? I mean, me and Jamal had a great first round. He dropped me in the first at the end with the jab, and that I walked into, and then you know the next round, you know, we had a all out brawl for about a minute and a half, and then I ended up knocking him out. And so to not get signed off of exactly what you should do on the Contender Series was just, you know, it was disheartening for me and frustrating. And I didn't really know what to do. And then I had changed management and got with Jason House at Iridium Sports Agency and got a short notice fight within like 10 days, like 3 days of signing with him. He told me, hey, man, in 10 days, you want to fight Devontae Smith? And I was like, and at the time I was down to do anything. And I should have been a little bit more selfish and a little bit more, I should have put a little more thought into it. I shouldn't have had, because even Jason said, yo, we could set you up with a featherweight fight like further down the road, or you could just take this fight right now with Devontae Smith and you'll be back in the UFC. And I was like, and I was, I felt kind of desperate at the time. You know, I'd been through the UFC, they cut me already. I did the Contenders and they didn't sign me after doing what you should do. And then, so I felt more desperate at the time. And so I took that fight, which is a fight I shouldn't have taken. You know, I was up a weight class against a guy who was 8-1 and 8 knockouts or TKOs and ends up knocking me out. And so, it just wasn't a good fight for me, but at least I had got back in the UFC. And then I fought Grant Dawson after that and ended up losing that by decision. But I had an ear infection, was on antibiotics, and I felt like if I got, I just got knocked out by Devontae Smith, and I felt like if I said no to that fight or if I pulled out a week before, they might just can me there, And so I was like, you know what, I can't do that. And I should have been smart about that fight. I should have just pulled out and just set up another date and done it like that. And didn't and lost that fight, off of my cardio basically, which is usually my best asset. But being on antibiotics, it really takes it out of you and dealing with an infection. And then I fought Julio Arce, and I was 100% healthy for that. Felt great. Felt like I won the first 2 rounds, and then ended up getting caught with a head kick. And those are some of the things that you just can't control. And losing those 3 fights, it just kind of sucked for me. And then you start questioning, is the UFC ever going to want me again, or should I try to move on to like Bellator or some of these other big organizations? And my manager Jason said, hey man, you want to try to get some wins, get back in the UFC? And I was like, are you joking? Like, I'm 1-4 in the UFC. What makes you think you're serious? You think these guys would actually have me back? And he's all like, I want to tell you that if I didn't believe it. And so, I ended up after those 3 fights, I went and fought AJ Bryant. Ended up catching him in a submission early on in that fight, and he was a pretty decent kid. And I think they were looking at him as well to get in the UFC eventually, and beat him. And then the whole COVID thing hit, and I think that's what really opened up the door for me. I think if the COVID didn't hit, I think it would have taken at least a few more fights against some pretty tough veterans outside the UFC to get back in the UFC, even if it was a possibility. And so having the COVID hit and people falling out left and right every fight card during that really opened the door for me. And my, having such a good manager like Jason just told me, just be ready, man. He's like, the next 5 or 6 weeks, we're going to be, the Apex is going to have all these fights, and people are not going to, they're going to run out of guys to fight, and people aren't going to be able to make it into town because of, whatever it is, getting COVID or traveling. And that's basically what happened for me was Sean Woodson was supposed to fight Nelson. Can't remember his first name, but they call him the Monster. He's from Canada. And he fought Billy. He lost to Billy Quarantello after that. But he was supposed to fight, couldn't get in for whatever reason because of the COVID. And then they actually went with another guy, Daniel Pineda. And Daniel Pineda, I think, had COVID at the time, and he was sick. And he accepted the fight, but then realized that he probably wasn't going to pass the test for the medicals. And so they ended up switching it to me. So it was just kind of a luck of the draw kind of thing. And I was basically getting ready for that fight without having a fight. Every day I was riding my bike. I was training. We were underground training. We were training in people's backyards. We were training in people's garages. We were training, at gyms that were, we're going through the back door and, getting our training in and doing everything we could. But I was riding my bike 50 miles like every other day, just because I didn't have, we were only training once a day, max, and we usually train twice a day. So I just told myself, I'm gonna ride my bike. I ain't got nothing else to do. We couldn't work. We couldn't really do anything. So I was just on my bike riding, and about 5 weeks, it took for me to get that fight. And luckily my weight was pretty good, and it was a catch weight at 150. But I actually was only 2.5 pounds away from making the actual featherweight limit. So, and that was on like 3 days. So it's like 2.5 days from Wednesday afternoon, or hold on, Tuesday afternoon to Friday morning, was the distance that I had to make that weight. And so just being on top of it and having a manager, make sure I was on top of it, like, hey, man. And then my manager knows I'm down to put the work in. So just having him tell me that there might be an opportunity, got my head straight and just made sure. Because, I mean, when everybody shut down, it was like everybody was kind of on a summer vacation. It almost felt like we were back in high school or middle school where you have the summer vacation now. Nobody's working. My wife was, her job had closed. We were starting to get unemployment, so we were getting paid to do nothing. So, we were going on hikes, we were going, having fun, we were drinking, just doing everything we wanted to do. And but my manager, he stayed on my ass and said, hey, he's like, something might fall out, and he's like, I guarantee you something's gonna fall out, And it had been, there was, I think, 3 weekends in a row until I got my fight that it was like me and 2 other guys on a list to fill in. Like, there was a fight that fell out, and it was you and these 2 other guys, but they went with this other guy. I'm like, all right, man. And then the next week, and the week before me, I think it was Camacho ended up fighting Justin James, and James got a knockout quick and got 50 G's on like 3 days notice, like I did the next weekend. And I was thinking, man, I was the other guy. Like, it was me and Justin James that they were looking at. And I think they thought Justin James was just an easier opponent to go with and than I was. And so they picked that fight. And I don't know if that's exactly the reason why, but that's what they went with. And, then he knocks him out, gets 50 G's. And I was thinking, I was just sitting at home like, man, I was so ready for that. I could have got in there, and I could have been me. And then the very next weekend, either the very next weekend or the weekend after that was when I fought Sean, and I did the same exact thing. And, it just, I think perception is reality. And having that happen to Justin right in front of me, I was just like, man, that could be me. I could easily do that because I train with Justin, and I know how good he is. And I do really well against him in the gym. And so I was thinking, man, if he could do it, it's, and I'm not saying he's bad by any means. I was just thinking in my head, like, if he could do it on short notice like that, I could do it. Anybody could do it. Any of these guys that we train with here in Vegas, I mean, it's a room full of studs. Anybody can jump in at any time and do that. So it was really just, kind of a luck of the draw, and I was just able to capitalize on that.
Yeah, and obviously the win there, it really just cements you're deserving to be right where you are in the UFC. How gratifying was that, man? I mean, how good did that feel to get a win over a guy that really a lot of people feel has a very, very high ceiling in Sean Woodson?
Oh yeah. I think it was ideal. It was an ideal matchup for me to really show kind of like my skill set and what I do in the gym on a daily basis. I'm one of those guys who just doesn't go away in a fight. I get stronger as the fight's going. You punch me in the face and I'm enjoying it. That's something that, I don't know. It's an acquired taste. It's like something like, if you don't like mustard, you don't like mustard. You don't like getting punched in the face, you don't like getting punched in the face. And for me, it's something that kind of, drives me within a fight, getting punched and being able to take what they got and just keep pushing forward and kind of break them mentally is one of my assets. And that's why I think this fight with Nate Landwehr is such a intriguing fight, is because he's similar. He seems to be like a similar guy to me in that sense. He wants to, push the pace, stay in your face the whole time. And that's eventually how I beat Sean Woodson. Sean was beating me in the fight. His boxing was better. He was landing. His percentages were a lot higher, landing more punches. But, you can only punch somebody so many times until you start getting tired yourself, and then you start to crumble. If like even Michael Bisping was commentating on the fight, and he was like, man, for someone like Sean Woodson, he's like, you got to be thinking, what else do I got to hit this kid with? This kid keeps coming and coming and coming. And I think towards that, the end of the second round, I was starting to break him. And then in the third round, being able to get him to the ground, I knew my ground skills were a whole lot better than his. And I don't want to say that because I haven't really trained with him and never done that. And I know he was tired in the fight, but I just knew I'm super confident in my ground skills, even though I really don't show them off too much. But I'm really confident in my Darce choke. And when I was able to get him on the ground on all fours and lock up that Darce choke, I knew it was going to be over at that point. But if I would have tried doing that in the first round, when you try to do that, someone who's fresh, who's got fight in them, it's hard to do that. But when you beat when you when you break someone down mentally before you do that, it's a whole lot easier. I mean, you even see it in the fight. He pulls his hand out, getting ready to tap. Like, if you have enough energy to pull your hand out to tap, you should have enough energy to at least fight it. Like, at least fight, go out. I mean, give every ounce of energy you have to just get out of that submission. But I think he was ready to be out of there. And I mean, not saying that he was looking for a way out, but I think when it presented itself, it was easier for him to just say, hey, you know what, you're the better man tonight. I need to go back to the board and and figure this out. But a lot of respect to Sean, because the guy's got tremendous skill, and his boxing was looking crisp. I mean, even if you watch the fight back, the whole first round he was picking me apart. Luckily for me, I was able to let my chin hold up and be able to be in the length of the fight with him and find that opportunity towards the end of that fight.
Well, again, congrats on the win. Really very impressive victory over a tough guy. This camp in Vegas, how has it been thus far? I mean, the fight's right around the corner, and who have been some of your main partners that you've been getting after it with?
Well, I live in Vegas, so like training here is great, and that's one thing I like about fighting here as well. It's like we have a little bit higher altitude, we have a dry heat here, and if you're not used to it, it can really bother you. We get a lot of people that come cross training out here, and they're like, oh man, it's like my lungs are killing me, my throat's like dry, and it is something to get used to. We have a lot of different pollens, and the allergies kind of get crazy here too sometimes. So if you're not used to that and you have to travel here to fight, I think it's a disadvantage a little bit. And so for me, that's always something that's that gets in your mind, that kind of gets you more confident too. It's like, I'm used to this weather. I've been here for the last few years, but and train here hard. I blow my lungs out every time I'm training, and in this weather, so I know what it's like. Some people training other places, you got different humidities, you got to do all that kind of stuff. But so being here is ideal for me to fight here as well. I'd rather fight here than have to go to Abu Dhabi for myself. But anyways, I would say some of my main training partners. One guy that I've been has been training with me even before I moved out here. He's from my hometown, George Alcala. He's 4-1 as a pro. He's managed by Jason as well, and he'll be coming around the UFC here pretty soon, whether it's Contenders or Ultimate Fighter or maybe getting a short notice fight himself. He's a stud in his own right, and but he's just at the beginning of his career. So, but he's one of my main training partners, and he's a featherweight too. He'll be dropping down to 35, but as of now, he's a great body for me. He's a shorter, stockier dude, kind of like Nate is compared to me, and so. It's a good look for me. So I've been using him a lot. Also, another guy who's almost built identically is Tristan Connolly, who's in the UFC. He's from Canada. He's been up here for the last, I would say, like 3 to 4 weeks, and I've been getting a lot of sparring in with him. He's one of those guys, just puts the pressure on you, and he's tough. I mean, you hit the kid with a baseball bat, and he's still coming at you. So it's perfect for me, because I feel like that's kind of how Landwehr is. And then like guys like Dan Ige, I see on a regular basis at Extreme, and he's built similar, and he's one of the best featherweights in the world as well. So it's always good to test myself against him. And I mean, there's a lot of other guys, I'll be missing out, like Justin James, he's at Extreme. I mean, we have so many killers in the gym, I can't name them all off. And I train at 10th Planet as well, so I get a lot of good grappling looks over there. This guy Andy Valera, hasn't really broke out in the MMA scene, but is a really good grappler. He's been on Submission Underground, the Chelsea one, and he's been subbing everybody out there, and he's a grappler genius. I mean, I get a lot of my technique from his classes, also with Casey Halstead, who's the owner of 10th Planet and my main coach basically. And so, but I mean, there's just so many guys. Vegas is just saturated with MMA and MMA fighters. So at any given time, you can get some of the best in the world that travel out here. You walk into Extreme. I mean, the first couple of times I had been here, and when I first moved here, it was like I was walking in and seeing like 5 or 6 UFC guys, and not just regular UFC guys, like some of the top. Like I was training with Kevin Lee, guys that were fighting for championships. And I actually helped Kevin Lee get ready for his fight against Tony Ferguson, because I'm a long, lanky, and I'm a good Darce and triangle guy. And so they were having me help him get used to that. And so it's just, there's just so many guys and so much talent in the room at any of these places here in Vegas.
Yeah, you guys have a stable of killers there, regardless of what gym you're at, no doubt about it. What's the weight like? Are you pretty much getting close to being on point? Do you still have, or you still have a lot to go?
Nah, weight's no issue with me, regardless of kind of where I'm sitting at. I took that, like I said, I took the Sean Woodson fight was, I had 2.5 days, 3 days to make the weight from when I knew I was gonna have the fight. But I'd been on it, and it kind of sucked because every week during that time, I would just be really diligent all the way through the week, and each week would be like a weight cut week because I didn't know if I was gonna have to make weight on Friday if it was a 1 day thing. So I was like kind of doing all my water loading and everything like to the T. And then Friday, if nothing would come to fruition, I would just be like, okay, I can like have a little cheat meal and do this and do that. And the Sean Woodson fight was the last weekend they were here before they went to Abu Dhabi, and so the weekend before that, I just figured I was like, man, there's already been a couple of weeks. They passed on me. I was like, I'm probably not gonna get a fight this week, and then it's gonna be in Abu Dhabi. So the Saturday before my fight, I was at my buddy's house, and I'd been diligent all week, so I kind of had my little cheat night, which was Saturday night. Ended up having like 6 beers that night. Had Taco Bell, and then Wednesday found out I was having a fight, and I woke up on Sunday at like 71, so I was 25 pounds over on Sunday, and then 25 pounds from featherweight limit, but we ended up fighting at 50, so it was 21 over that, and was able to make the weight, but a lot of that extra weight was just the extra carbs and the beer and the sodium and that kind of stuff. So once I cut that out throughout the week, it just lowered on its own, and the weight cut really wasn't that bad, and I was only 2.5 pounds away, and so. Right now, this morning I woke up at 163 pounds, so and I'm even further out than I was with the Sean Woodson fight. So weight should not be a problem. Just being as big as I am, it doesn't really matter where I'm kind of hovering at. It's always just the last couple of pounds, which is the worst. My body just once it hits 48, the last couple of pounds is really what is terrible. All the other weight will kind of come off pretty easily, but then as soon as I get under 50, it's a little difficult. But nothing I haven't been through before. I've done it at the worst of times and the best of times. So I'm back in the UFC, and I'll cut weight for them anytime they need me to. So it's all good.
Now, this Landwehr fight, I'm really looking forward to, man. It has fight of the night written all over it, quite potentially. So who knows? Maybe you'll have 50 G's or more coming to you here soon. But break this down for me. How do you see this fight playing out?
Yeah, ideally for me, I just hope both of our chins hold up and we can just, burn it out, because I'd rather, I'm one of those guys that's more of an entertainer than I would be worried about, just trying to play it safe. So, and I think Landwehr is pretty similar in that sense too. And I'd be interested in just brawling it out with the guy. I want to be a little smarter about it and technical and really get off on my, on the things that I've been working on. But at the same time, it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's like, do you want to brawl it out and risk, at that point it's like flipping a coin, who's going to get lucky. And I don't want to, I don't want my career relying on that. But at the same time, I also want to be exciting. So I want to go out there and kind of make a statement on my feet with this kid and just kind of showcase my ability to adjust to different kinds of fighters. Sean Woodson was a really good boxer, and I was willing to adjust in the fight. And I think Nate Landwehr is tough, durable, but I think he's, a little bit ABC on the feet, but he's tough, and you don't have to be good on the feet. If you have the heart and you have the toughness and the persistence, you can beat anybody. So, I'm not taking anything away from him. I just think he's a little bit more mediocre on the feet than a guy like Sean Woodson is, obviously. And so I think I'm going to be able to pick him apart on the feet. And if he wants to, if he decides to, try to get to the ground, or I try to get to the ground, I feel like my ground game is pretty underrated. And so, there's a couple of submissions that I'm really confident in. So we'll see, how that plays out on the ground. I don't want to give out too much information, but then again, if we, I would just be as happy as going 15 minutes of a hard fight with that kid, because I know for a fact if we go 15 minutes hard, it's going to be a contender for fight of the night, especially when you got a main event like Curtis Blades and Lewis. I feel like that fight's going to be a little boring. On the Sean Woodson fight, the main event was Dustin Poirier and Dan Hooker, and those guys beat the dog crap at each other for 25 minutes. So no matter how good my fight was, there was no way I was going to compete with those guys for fight of the night at that specific night. But luckily, I was able to get a performance bonus, which was nice. But for fight of the night, I think we have a little bit of an edge between our fight and everybody else's fight, just because we're both tough, durable guys that want to swing.
Yeah. Do you envision a finish here? Like when you close your eyes at night and you're thinking about this fight, do you envision yourself getting a KO or a submission, or do you feel like this very well could go the distance?
Oh, I mean, that's always the plan. You know, you always you try to set yourself up for these, for knockout strikes, or set yourself up for finishes on, on the ground as well. And so, um, I'm not a decision type of dude. I mean, you look at, most like, I'm like 80 something percent, like 85%, finish rate on all my wins. And so I don't I don't try to just like ride out a decision. Like if I feel like I'm down in a fight, just like on Sean Woodson's, like I was willing to give everything I had to win that fight, to finish it. Because I mean, with the judging nowadays, I mean, you see some of these decisions go the wrong way all the time, and it's like, you could beat the dog crap out of someone for 3 rounds and still lose a decision. It's crazy. So for me, it's that's the driving force behind getting finishes and really trying to focus on finding ways to finish the fight, because I don't trust 3 random people that probably never been in a fight in their life on my career. And so if I have it in my control in 15 minutes, if I can finish him, which I finished some of the best guys in the UFC or even in the gyms within 15 minutes of a grappling or sparring or whatever it is, with submission. So I can see myself subbing this kid out, and I can also see myself knocking him out, or a combination in between. So, but I'm always ready for 15 minutes, and actually I'm ready for more than that. I'm always prepared myself cardio wise, and to go the distance and go a hard 15 minutes. So we'll see what happens, but I think with me and him, I don't think we're gonna end up seeing a decision.
Well, I can't wait. I'm very excited for this fight, Julian. Again, Julian Erosa will fight Nate Landwehr at UFC Vegas 19 on February the 20th. So it is right around the corner. I really appreciate the time here today. Before I let you go, I want to give you the floor. Tell people where to find you on social media, or if you have anybody that you want to thank, including sponsors. The floor is yours.
I don't want to. I don't want to specifically go over any sponsorships, because I don't want to leave anybody out. But if most of my stuff's on my social medias. But my Instagram, I got hacked, so I have a new Instagram. Is Julian_Erosa for my Instagram, and that's probably the best way to reach out to me if you're trying to reach out to me. My Facebook is just my name, Julian Erosa, and then my Twitter, I hardly ever go on my Twitter, so you'd be lucky to get a hold of me on there. But Instagram is probably the best way to get a hold of me. But then, I mean, obviously, I want to shout out to my my friends, my family, and all the gyms, my coaches, Eddie Baracco and Casey Holstead. But I really want to shout out to Jason House and Iridium Sports Agency. They're the only reason why I'm here. They're the only reason why I got that Sean Woodson fight and was able to, kind of turn my life around and get back in the UFC like I did, was because of them specifically. So they gave me that opportunity. I was able to seize that. And so I always like to shout out to them, because without them, I want to be here. And but yeah. And then obviously I want to thank the UFC, and I want to thank you for having me on the show as well.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure. Best of skill come fight night, and let's do this again soon.
Awesome, man. I appreciate you, brother. Be easy.